My name is Kiri Staples, and I am a PhD student at the University of Waterloo. It is currently -38 in Dawson City, Yukon, and while I walk to work, I thought I would tell you about my PhD research. The working title for my PhD is Addressing the Cumulative Effects of Non-Renewable Resource Development in the Context of Co-Governance. That's a bit of a mouthful, so let me show you what that means. This is footage of the Indian River watershed, an area south of Dawson City in the Yukon within Trandai-Quechin Traditional Territory. As you may be able to tell, there's been a lot of placer mining in this area. Mining raises some really interesting conservation and sustainability questions. Can mining be used as a bridge to a more sustainable future? For example, can revenues from mining be used to fund skill-building activities and contribute to post-mining livelihoods of nearby communities? What will building one mine, as well as a road to that mine, mean for future development? Will building one road to a mine lead to more mines in the area? To add to this, impacts from mining are not solely biophysical. The Indian River watershed is a good example of this. There are several places in the watershed that are really important for Trandai-Quechin. They are called Category A settlement land under the Trandai-Quechin Final Agreement. On this map, you can see how one of these places, in white, is surrounded by placer mine claims, in orange. If all of these claims were turned into active mines, some of the impacts on settlement land would be addressed through the environmental assessment process. However, if the purpose of these lands are, in part, to protect Trandai-Quechin culture and way of life, it raises really interesting questions about whether it is possible to maintain aspects of culture, such as connection to the land, through small parcels of land surrounded by placer mines. When you take all of this into consideration, when you consider impacts to future generations, impacts of past, present, and future mining and related activities together, impacts of these activities on the landscape as a whole rather than a single project, these are cumulative effects. These questions are not easy. To me, the interesting part about these questions are how governments work together to deal with them. In the Indian River watershed, for example, decisions about mining can include the federal government, territorial government, and Trandai-Quechin. Each of these governments might have a different idea about cumulative effects. They each might have their own understanding of how much development is too much. This is what I am exploring in my research. How decisions are made about cumulative effects of mining, and how the current approach to addressing these issues in the Yukon might be made more effective. To do this, I'm talking to decision makers about their expectations, as well as to practitioners in areas like environmental assessment and land use planning about the barriers and opportunities that they see in addressing cumulative effects. So far, I've talked to about 30 people, and the conversations have been incredible. One of the most interesting things, in my opinion, to come out of these conversations so far is how nearly everyone that I talk to agrees that cumulative effects are a significant issue, but there is a huge diversity in how they see these issues being addressed in the Yukon. Some people point to a lack of data, others to a lack of political will, poor legislation, differences in values, communication challenges between governments, and so on. What's even more interesting is that there are some questions that no one seems to have an answer to. Receiving this scholarship has meant that I have the capacity to explore these issues in the depth that they truly require. I'm talking to people about their perspectives and experiences. I'm learning about the history of mining in the area, and I'm trying to understand Trandai-Quechin history and governance, and none of that is easy or quick. Building trust takes time. It means spending time in Trandai-Quechin offices, reading through their archives, and a lot of things that might not qualify as research per se. Volunteering at community events, such as moosehead gathering, and temporarily losing feeling in one of my fingers because I was chopping caribou meat with a dull knife for 5 hours, not necessarily research. Helping Trandai-Quechin staff decorate their offices for Christmas because they need a tall person to hang things from the ceiling, not necessarily research. Going to a sewing circle and listening to stories, not necessarily research. However, all of these have been experiences that have helped me to understand the place where I'm doing my work and the people I'm working with. They are experiences I could not have had without the support of the Garfield Weston Foundation. I am incredibly grateful for the support and sincerely believe that the scope and quality of my research has benefited significantly from it.